Hi, and welcome back. In this episode, we're going to look at the hardware monitoring or performance graph in your account. So simply click on the link. It'll take you to this landing page. It'll give you some information, and it'll remind you that you must use your username and password to log in. So let's go ahead and do that. It'll take you to the login page here, and you'll simply just add your username and password from the website, and it'll log you in. It'll take you straight to the graphs. Looks like a lot of information here, but let me walk through it slowly with you. This is what we call a time-based graph. It's all based about a period of time and what's going on. So let's start with the top graph. The top graph is about CPU usage. Okay. Now in this particular graph, you can see that at 1448 to 1458, which is right now while I'm videotaping, you can see that there was activity in the Foundry application. And that's what that is registering. Okay. Now, because I haven't refreshed the Foundry website, there's been no activity. So let me go back there and let me bring up my application. Let's log in here. Let this load up. And what I'm going to do is I'm just going to hit reload a bunch of times to create some data. And what's happening is it's being recorded in a very special performance monitor database. Okay. Now it'll take a few seconds, but eventually what we'll see is we'll see that information show up here. So this is time down here, and this is CPU usage on this side. So there's two CPUs on this box. So therefore full 100% CPU usage would be 2.00. As you can see from this graph, the application as it sits is using 0.0156. Not much. 0.01 of one CPU. So you can see that Foundry is very efficient when it comes to the CPU usage. Okay. Now we are going to see this show up here. It does take a few minutes. There's a delay in the reporting. If we had CPU quota enabled, which we don't, we would see that information here. And if you started to exceed your quota, what you would see is you would see throttling here. This is our memory. So what you are looking at here is, first off, again, time across the bottom and RAM across the y-axis on the left. This here, red dotted line, shows you your RAM quota for your game, which in this case is 325 megabytes. You have burstable room to 1 gigabyte, meaning temporarily your game can burst and consume 1 gigabyte of memory, but it must go back to its 325. You'll never be able to exceed the 1 gigabyte. And if Foundry tries to exceed the 1 gigabyte, it actually will crash, and it'll crash with an out-of-memory error. That usually happens with a poorly programmed module, corrupt data, or a bug either in Foundry or in a module. Okay. Next, we have a panel that just shows you the information in numbers as what's going on in the graph. Okay. And you'll notice that there's actually two applications running. One of them is Foundry, and one of them is the file manager, web-based file manager. Here, what we're looking at is your bandwidth. So you receive and transmit. And what this is showing is that during that time, we had a bandwidth of 66 kilobytes per second in receive and transmit. Well, you'll actually see that the transmit was a lot lower. So here it was, sorry, backwards. So 1.3 megabits per second and receiving at 66 kilobits per second. Don't get too caught up on the numbers. What we want to see here is just nice bandwidth moving to and from. And you'll be able to correlate spikes in RAM usage because these all run on the same time scale. So this peak here actually corresponds to here. And if you see a big spike in RAM and you see a big spike in bandwidth, you'll notice that the two of them are related. And if you go back up, you'll see the CPU information that we talked about earlier. And you'll be able to isolate whether you want either or both. Okay. Now, down here, packets dropped. This should never have anything on it. But if you start to see a significant amount of drop packets, this is something that you need to notify us about right away so that we can do something about it. Okay? So this is Grafana. Now, we can change what we're looking at. So let's go up here. You can look last 5 minutes and you'll see the graph will change and the time scale down here will change. We can look at the last 15 minutes. We can look at the last 30 minutes. We can go all the way up to the last 7 days. And it's just the time scale here changes. This button here tells Grafana how often to refresh the screen. Every 5 seconds to every day. I think every day is useless, but you could do it. But let's go back to 5 seconds. If you want to manually refresh, you can hit this button here. Okay? So this is important if you're trying to debug some misbehaving modules and things like that. It will give you an idea as to what's going on. Okay? So I hope you enjoy this. Let me know what you think. Come stop by the Discord channel and let us know. To log out, you can come down here and sign out. It'll take you back to here, and you can close the Grafana page. Your password and username are linked. So only change your password in the website, and it will be migrated to Grafana, and you'll use the same username and password to log in. So I hope that's helpful. I hope you enjoyed it, and stay tuned for the next one. Take care, everybody.